Hello.
Hi there.
Can you hear me good?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Need to turn up my speakers. There we go. We don't need to record yet.
Students to produce our Earth Day program. It first started with them coming to exhibit and teach about what they had learned themselves that year at Earth Day, and to them stepping up to being part of the planning and production of Earth Day and taking more leadership each time, which we, support and love. This last year, in fact, we had to go to a virtual program because of the COVID-19. And we were exposed to all of the results of their Zoo Academy from the 2019-20 school year. And the conservation programs that they came up with included, protection of bats and why, shark finning, zero waste programs. There was a program on There Is No Planet B, pollinator protection, and there was this really neat learning program called the BioCube that teaches young people about how to focus on and love nature, since we spend a great deal of their time out on a playground somewhere instead of really getting into nature. So this BioCube program was really cool. So another thing is that last year, starting with the 2019 school year, we were contacted by more students than ever before, who were doing research for papers and projects about the environment, within their school curriculum. And that's actually how we came across Project Revitalize at Bellevue West, the Bellevue West Fbla, which you'll hear about today. And we're working closely with Bellevue University as well, and they have a new environmental science club that has formed. So we look forward to learning along with that club and that group and that community as well. So I just want to say that today's program is not a one-time, one-off program. This is a continuation of Green Bellevue's strong support of youth-led environmental programs and efforts. And we're committed to do more, to learn about what you are doing, and to do what we can to bolster and promote and financially support your efforts and work with you. So in 2018, our mayor honored Green Bellevue with the Jewel of Bellevue Award. And it's one of the prestigious awards in our community for the efforts that we've done. And one of the jewels that Green Bellevue has been privileged with is Kat Warner. And she has organized today's program, and she's going to moderate for us today. The Green Bellevue team met Kat in the fall of 2017 while she was the president of the Ecology Club at Bellevue West, and she joined our board as a student representative. In her time with us, she's addressed our city council to share why leadership is needed from the city to encourage environmental protection. She's run multiple zero waste events. She had a walk for water, a couple of events for walk for water, so that you can understand some of the communities that don't have ready access to water like we do in the United States. And she's inspired many others that you are never too young to make a difference. And rightfully so, in 2018, she was recognized as an environment champion by Green Bellevue. And she also earned a Friend of the Environment Award by Earth Day Omaha that year. Currently, Kat actively participates with us as a Green Bellevue board member while attending the University of Nebraska-Lincoln full-time. And she's majoring in environmental studies, economics, natural resource economics, and she's also serving as a sustainability specialist in UNL's Office of Sustainability. In this position at UNL, she has worked with students and faculty alike to write policy to ban styrofoam across all of the University of Nebraska campuses. And she's helped to renovate their recycling program. And currently she's creating with the team the university's first sustainability master plan. So Kat, you are a model for leadership, for youth-led leadership, and I'm pleased to turn this program over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ruth, for the introduction.
Hold on, I'm going to interrupt real quick, Kat. I am so sorry. I forgot to let everybody know at the beginning that we are recording this meeting so that people who weren't able to join us can still see what we said. So I just want to give everybody a heads up that this will be recorded. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you for that. So thank you, Michelle. And then also thank you, Ruth. Ruth, for calling me like a jewel. Like, thanks. That really warms my heart. Oh my gosh, that made me smile so big. But yeah, it's also wonderful to see the rest of you all today. I'm super excited for today's meeting. This is something that I have been passionate about for so long. And as we all have seen, youth have been leading this movement for so long, and we have been playing an important role in history, pushing the older generations to make changes for our generation and for the next ones. And so I wanted to take this time today to highlight what local youth are doing and use their energy to continue pushing the rest of us forward. So our list of speakers today in order are Braden and Jack with Project Revitalize from Bellevue West, Camille with Students for Sustainability, Carolyn from Creighton Climate Movement, and then Stephen Kirchner with Our Climate. And so to start us off is a national award-winning group from Bellevue West, Project Revitalize. So go ahead.
Hey. Hello, I am Jack Medden.
I'm Aiden Brumbaugh, and we're the project leads of Project Revitalize. So Project Revitalize, our Fbla community service project, began after we experimented with small-scale composting in our student-run coffee shop, the Thunder Brew. After implementing it, we asked ourselves, why stop there? We can make composting happen in our whole school and possibly the whole district. So after doing some research, we found that this is something relatively new sweeping through schools across Omaha. We originally were in contact with Hillside Solutions when it came to composting our coffee cups, so we called them again asking if they could take compost from our whole school. After a meeting with Hillside affiliates, Principal at Bellevue West Kevin Ross, Lead Custodian at Bellevue West Laura Olson, Director of Activities and Grounds Bill Richards, and students from several of Bellevue West clubs and organizations, we learned that this would be possible as long as the project would be student funded.
As business-minded individuals, we sought to do this project not only for the environmental benefits, but also to expand our networking skills and hone our business fundamentals. We were very mindful of things such as the cost of the project and feasibility as we approached the project with a more analytical mindset to ensure that all the moving parts would be in place upon launch. I like to say that this is a unique perspective that we have as business students, because sometimes when starting major projects, we tend to forget the work that goes on behind the scenes that have promising results. To ensure this wasn't an issue, we proceeded to do a lot of research beforehand.
We proceeded to visit schools such as Brownell Talbot and Black Elk Elementary to get an idea of the impact programs like these have. We learned that these programs are not only helpful to the environment we're growing up in, but also educational. We watched students composting without any confusion, showing that it had become second nature to them, proving that if we have more programs like these in Bellevue, a habit of zero waste practices could develop in adults and children alike. After researching, we evaluated the cost of the program. For composting alone, it's $300 a month for Bellevue West, a school of approximately 1,600 students. Then for our coffee shop, it's $114 for a box of 1,000 compostable coffee cups. This is way cheaper than our original estimates, allowing us to spend around $400 a month to compost in our school.
To gather the necessary funds to make the project happen, we reached out to local community. We learned that Green Bellevue provides grants to pilot programs who are looking to debut composting initiatives in Bellevue schools. After multiple discussions with their board of representatives, Project Revitalize received a $1,146 grant from Green Bellevue. The grant enabled Bellevue West Fbla to cover over half the cost of the amount needed to implement the project, and the remaining funds were collected from businesses SDI and B&Q Associates PC LLO, who each donated $500. To spread the word about the project, we made a video that was sent to the student body to keep them informed about what we were doing in the school. However, to spread the word around the community, we were given many platforms to promote Project Revitalize. We were given the opportunity to speak at Sarpy County Earth Day and in front of the Bellevue City Council, setting the stage for us to reflect upon our experiences, sharing our plans for the future, and encouraging more projects like this to spring up in our community. Bellevue Public Schools, Hillside Solutions, and Green Bellevue all shared our efforts through social media posts as well, further drawing attention to the project.
So composting at Bellevue West officially began February 10th with the introduction of 2 composting stations in the school cafeteria. Each station had been assigned a supervisor to educate students on what items went into each bin to prevent any contamination within the composting bins. In addition to these supervisors, the Hillside Solutions staff had been present the entire first week to help students as well as see the progress firsthand. Over the course of the next few weeks after the initial launch, we began experimenting with the stations, including the addition of a third station in the Bellevue West Common area, which brought in even more compostable waste. We then began to take away our station supervisors and allowed the students to use the stations on their own, which worked perfectly. Students began looking at what they were throwing away and knew which items were compostable and which ones weren't. The process to incorporate this wasn't hard once we began the education process. With a few signs and an educational video, the students at Bellevue West knew what to do. The composting program has been an overwhelming success, and with the reintroduction of recycling, Bellevue West has taken the steps necessary to become a greener place.
During the first week of the Project Revitalize, Hillside Solutions weighed our compost as well as our landfill trash to calculate the percentage of waste diverted to compost. Overall, the amount consumed at Bellevue West totals around half a ton of waste. We started off at 44% waste diversion, and as the week went on, we maxed out about 59% waste diversion on the last 2 days. This indicates that over half the waste during Bellevue West lunches was composted and can be used to create new composted soil. By just introducing composting to the students, we were able to get them into a routine of composting in just a week. Then, with the introduction of the third station in the Commons, we were able to collect more compost and divert more and more waste away from the landfill. For our Fbla competition, we created a 15-page report outlining the specifics of the Project Revitalize for our community service project. This included the planning, research, funding, launch of the project, and finally, future plans for Project Revitalize. At the state level of competition, our project had received first place, which qualified us for the national level of competition. We then made a few changes to our report, including some extra data and future plans for Project Revitalize, and then submitted. We then received the results in July, with Project Revitalize receiving third in the nation. This would not be possible without the support and resources provided by Green Bellevue and Hillside Solutions, who made this project an overwhelming success.
Due to COVID-19, we have to put the project on hold for the foreseeable future. We are hoping that things become better by the end of the first semester, but as you know, we can't be certain of that. Once we are able to, the project is going to start back up in full swing and the program will be reestablished at Bellevue West. While the roots of our project started in Bellevue West, our team has plans to introduce our composting system to the rest of the Bellevue district so that all schools can participate. This will further encourage students of all ages and staff to learn how they can be more eco-conscious in their daily life. Our project has proved itself more than capable of starting that conversation around sustainability. Once the entirety of Bellevue Public Schools is committed to composting, Project Revitalize is ambitious enough to introduce the program to surrounding companies. We figure that if a school district can implement a successful method of sustainable waste removal, then local businesses can easily do the same. While recent circumstances have put our plans on pause for the time being, we believe that our accomplishments so far show the power of young people. The program would not have been possible without the help and cooperation of other student-led clubs in our school. We hope our project further encourages students to take charge and enact the change they wish to see in their communities. And if it's change they're looking for, Bellevue is the place that can give them the opportunity to do so. Thank you. We will now open up the floor to any questions.
Aiden, I would ask, what was the response from the other students when you first rolled this out? Because I would think many of them wouldn't have any connection or any real draw to do this. What was the response, and in any negative response, how did you deal with that?
So the initial response we got was a little confused at first. A lot of them didn't really know what was going into it, but our original goal was to partner with as many clubs and groups in our school so that they would at least see somebody they knew doing it. And so it would feel more like there's something they can grasp to. So if you're in ROTC and you have the ROTC representative talking with these people trying to start this in the school, you're more likely to go ask them later, hey, what's this project about? Hey, what are we doing? We had a few students who obviously didn't really want to have any part to do with it. And so we kind of tried to keep things as simple as possible so that even if they weren't participating, the ones who did participate would be brought out more. And it'd kind of be one of those group mentalities where if everyone around you is doing it, you should probably just go on and do it. And so the response was overwhelmingly positive to start. We really didn't think that it was going to gain that much traction. As you saw in our statistics, we had 44% the first day, which was quite a huge amount. And then later it grew to over half the waste being diverted, which was higher than any estimate we could have gotten. That was more of an end goal rather than a beginning goal to have over 50%. So for the response to the student body, it was surprisingly, they were all surprisingly receptive, and I couldn't have been happier.
Great. And what about from the teachers and the administrators? And by the way, I think Steve Thyberg, one of your former teachers, may be on here, at least one of Kat's former ones.
Well, for the teachers and the administration, they were mostly all in for us, especially like Kevin Rolfs and the counselors. They were really in, especially since that first meeting, early September, October with Kevin Rolfs. He was really into it and wanted to help any way possible. And many of them actually were out there helping us when we couldn't be out there. The project leads or any of the club representatives that were out there, and they actually were a great help. And many of them asked if they could help with recycling or with any of the composting as well. So as we can see, the teachers and the students were all in with this project.
So I see a question. What are the parameters to restart the program now? So at the moment, because of how our lunchroom has shifted, we have a new way of doing things in the lunchroom. Kids have to be spread out. Lunch periods don't ever interact with each other anymore. There's about a 10 to 15 minute grace period in between lunches. And so with everything they were trying to plan, they basically said, we can't take any risk with students being grouped up around a station, reteaching them how to throw things away. And so the big things that we have to cover is the restrictions kind of have to get limited, or the restrictions kind of have to go away with us being able to have students kind of closer together and things, as well as still having enough time to make sure that us as students who are taking over the emptying of the composting bins or taking them out to the back of the school every day are able to do so without interacting with too many people. Apart from that, Hillside Solutions themselves actually released a statement from the CDC saying that COVID-19 cannot be spread through food waste. And so the big issue is just having a ton of students grouped up. So once we can have that and students are allowed to interact closer to each other, we'll be able to restart.
So I do have a question. So who's going to take over the project? So I know Jack graduated and Baden, aren't you a senior? And
Yes, I am.
so how's that going to work?
So our initial plan was to mainly make this a 2-year project, to where we could kind of get everything situated with all the other schools and then kind of have them like all bounce around, and just one of those, one school does it, they bounce on. But obviously that isn't the case. So right now I had a junior, her name is Carly Rigatuso, and she has offered she really wanted to be part of it. And so once Jack graduated, she already wanted to join me on this year of it. And so I'm going to be passing on just about everything I know onto her and hopefully get her into a spot where she can take it over. And if she needs any help, she can always talk to me and Jack while we're in college or whatever thing we're doing, and still make sure that she's able to know what's going on, where we're going to pick up and all that. So we're trying to be proactive and make sure that once we're gone, then it's still going to be going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we have time for one more question if somebody has anything. All right, sounds like we can move on. So thank you all so much for that. That is so cool. As a Bellevue West alum, it's absolutely amazing hearing about that, because that is something that I always wanted to do, but I didn't know where to start. And so I'm really glad to see that you all did this project and that's going to continue. That makes my heart really warm. So yeah, moving on is next we have Students for Sustainability. And so the main presenter for this one is Camille. And so Camille is a senior at Westside High School, where she serves as the president of Warrior Planet. In this club, they maintain campus park and encourage Westside students to become more socially aware of their environmental footprint on our world. Along with this, Camille serves as president of Students for Sustainability, which is comprised of students from all around Omaha, fighting for sustainability and environmental action, especially at the local level. In her free time, she enjoys being a part of her school show choir program, reading, and spending time with friends. Welcome, Camille.
Hi, Thank you for having me. I'm gonna try to share my screen. I've never done that before, but can you see my screen?
Yeah, we sure can.
Okay, cool. So I'm here with a couple of my board members, Aiden and Bridget, but I'll start by introducing Students for Sustainability. We're pretty new. We were just founded last year by our good friend Kate Kelly. She's now at college, but yeah, so we're an organization of high school students from around Omaha. And yeah, I'm the president, and I'll let my board members introduce themselves.
So I'm Aiden Chapman. I'm a senior at Creighton Prep, and I am the vice president of Students for Sustainability. So I kind of work with Camille on running the organization, like keeping everyone organized and keeping our weekly meetings organized and keeping the agenda concise, I guess.
Hi, I'm Bridget Neville. I'm a senior at Millard North. I write a lot of blog posts, and I also do some social media organization. I do journalism at my school, so it translates really well to be able to write about climate news for Students for Sustainability.
So Students for Sustainability, we kind of, over the last couple of years, have developed 4 main demands, we call them. And so the first one is we campaign to pass a state climate action plan. And so there was one in the state, state Senate recently, but they pushed back the vote, I believe, to sometime next year. And so one of the things we did to really try and, I guess, campaign for that was we actually got together and we all wrote letters to our state senators and let them know how we felt about the issue, because we felt like that was hopefully a good way to compel them. But yeah, and I think Nebraska is one of 5 states that doesn't have one. It might be a little more than that, but we are definitely on the wrong side of the curve. Our next I think as for demand, one of our next demand is that we are in favor of transitioning to regenerative agriculture, which if you don't know what that is, which I did not know what that was until quite recently, is it's like agriculture that builds up the environment versus agriculture that saps like nutrients from the environment. And so my grandparents actually run a farm out somewhere in western Nebraska, and they were one of the first farmers to I guess do no-till planting, where they don't tear up the grass every year to plant their seeds, which is really detrimental to the environment. So we are against no-till. We also regenerative agriculture also involves a lot of like regeneration, which is mainly through fallowing in Nebraska, where you just let a field sit for a while and then it will regenerate the nutrients that it lost from the soybeans or corn or whatever. And so another thing we push for is that we push to harness our renewable energy potential, because so our neighbors Iowa have, I think, first or second most wind energy produced in a year out of all the states, I think behind Texas, which I mean, they're a bit bigger. Nebraska is, I think, not even in the top 15, even though our potential is similar to Iowa's. And so we find that a little concerning, because obviously, 1, the environmental effects, and 2, like from an economic standpoint, renewable energy poses a more financially beneficial, once you get rid of the subsidies, it poses a more financially beneficial source of energy than fossil fuels and natural gas. And then so our 4th demand is we are against the KXL pipeline, which is near Neely, Nebraska. So we have campaigned against that pretty consistently for the last couple of years.
Okay, so we try and hold different events. It is difficult right now with the pandemic, but we do our best with social distancing. So a few weeks ago, we had a clothing drive where everyone brought in some washed clothes. We sold them for $1. What we didn't use, we donated, just because one of our like weekly themes for the blog and for social media early in the summer was talking about fast fashion, which is a really, really awful thing that something that the middle class actively participates in and can do a lot to combat. So things like clothing drives, buying from thrift stores and like Goodwill and Scout, which we had to give a gift card raffle thing in Dundee, Scout, that store. Buying from places like that are really helpful. So the clothing drive is one of our events that happened pretty recently. We also had a composting lesson in July. We had Brian from Hillside Solutions come in. He talked to us about composting, how to start composting programs at our schools. He talked about success stories from other schools, which is really exciting to hear because I know I go to Millard North, like I said, which is a very large school. And I thought that something like composting could never happen at my school. But he told us about how composting is happening at really big schools, and it really motivated me to talk to my principal and try and put a plan in action. And we're working on a composting program right now, so that's super exciting. We do community cleanups where we go into areas and we just kind of spend some time as a group recycling and picking up litter, which is such a gross thing, but it's a really nice thing that we're able to do. Some of the action we do, as Aiden said, we do letter writing to state senators, talking to our representatives about issues that directly affect us. I think as teenagers, it can be incredibly difficult feeling like you just can't do anything. Because I know personally, I'm too young to vote. I'm not going to be able to vote in this year's election because I'm only 17. So I feel like sometimes I'm sort of at this point where I can't do anything politically. But things like letter writing can really make a huge change. Just consistently nagging at your representatives can make them reconsider something. So that's one of my favorite things that we've been able to do. We are also doing our climate strike, which I believe Camille is going to talk about later, so I'll not take too much of her action, but we have that going on.
Yeah, so what you can do, you can join our climate strike in a few weeks. It's going to be Friday, September 25th at 9 a.m. We're going to do a little school strike, and it's going to be in front of the Douglas County Courthouse. What to bring: your voice, a mask, friends, family, anyone who's interested, and also a sign with a clever slogan to catch people's attention. We'd love to see you there and send a bold message to our legislators. Does anybody have questions?
I was curious how the three of you, or just your group, from being from different schools, how did you all kind of get connected?
I joined earlier this year, before pre-pandemic. So I know our founder, Kate, started it last year, and initially it was a lot of her own school. Like a lot of the members were from her own school, and she went to Mercy. So it started out with a lot of Catholic school students, but once, I don't know, I think it was just expanding from, I don't know, our members continued to, my video's not on, sorry. Yeah, as we gained members, we gained connections, and from there it spread. I know I did a lot when I was I used to be in charge of social media, and so I did a lot, and I recruited some of my friends, and they recruited people. It's kind of just a domino effect, sort of.
That's awesome. One question that I have for you all is, like, from what you just saw, well, from what you just said and whatnot, you guys have done so many cool things. What has been your favorite part of being a part of this group, or the events, or like the climate strikes? What's been your favorite part?
Aiden, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So I really enjoyed going to the climate strike last year. It was in September. I think there's like a big day where they have all of them, like nationally, even internationally. And so I felt like that was really refreshing, because I feel like it can be really easy to get like into a negative spiral with like the news and like everything happening, and like seeing what's happening on the West Coast right now with like forest fires everywhere. I feel like it can be really easy to just get down on yourself when you see that. And going to a climate strike and seeing 200 people who also care about this issue is just really inspiring, and really gives you hope and lets you see that there is a better future ahead. And I feel like that was really important to see, and one of the best moments of working in this movement.
Yeah, what about you, Bridget?
I think being able to, like we sort of touched on earlier, connect with so many people throughout the metro area. My school doesn't really have an environmental club, and I think it's really inspiring to be able to see so many people my age that are equally passionate about this, because a lot of times it feels like, you know, sort of isolated, that like no one cares about the planet and stuff. And so like being in a group, it's so inspiring that like teenagers really do care about good things, you know. I think it's just a nice community to have.
Mm-hmm. And then Camille, what about you, Miss President?
Just to pick something other than the climate strike, which is probably my favorite as well. I really enjoyed our clothing swap a few weeks ago. It was fun to see people get together, and I think that's been our biggest turnout apart from the climate strike, and kind of just introduce people to the concept of fast fashion, because once people know about it, you know, they're more aware, and obviously they're more aware, but they change their actions, and it's just it's so fun to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Each of you all are so inspiring. Because I went also the climate strikes last year, the one that was in Omaha, and then also the one that was in Lincoln. Like those were probably my if I remember really anything from like last year, it was those climate strikes, because it was just like so fun. It was so rejuvenating seeing so many people there, so many people with signs, and like even so many businesses like and representatives coming out and supporting, and seeing all the students, all the community leaders, and just the vast amount of people that want to see a different future that we want to see as youth. All right, so I think we have some time for a few more questions. Does anybody have any else for Students for Sustainability?
I've got one. How do members find you, and how do you find members?
So we really try and focus on having a fairly large social media presence, because in our generation, it seems like that's one of the main like school to school like consistencies, where I see social media posts from people from all over the Omaha area. And so we really focus on having like a big Twitter or Instagram or Facebook presence to try and be out there for other people to find us. And then hopefully from there, they can reach out to us on our website, or DM us, or email Camille or something. And it's like, I guess our main recruitment method is either by word of mouth, where I'll be at prep talking to someone and be like, hey, this is pretty cool. You should come out if you're interested. Or social media, where we will hopefully get views or clicks from people who didn't know we exist, see us and like, oh, that's wow, that's really cool. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, it looks like Camille just threw everything into the chat. So feel free to, of course, follow them, and then also share the stuff that they have going on, so other students, other youth in the area have the ability to connect and have that community as well. All right, anybody have any more questions?
I don't have a question, but I know I was at the climate strike last year in Omaha, and I thought it was awesome, and I really was inspired by all of you and your work, and the students of all ages. I mean, I saw from elementary students all the way up. So thank you for your commitment to that. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your support.
And Camille and students, I would just mention, Janice Molhoff, who just spoke, is, for anybody who doesn't know, on the OPPD board of directors, and certainly is an advocate for renewable energy and sustainability and all the things that you and everyone stands for. As is Eric Williams, another OPPD board member who is on. So not only do your letter writings have influence, but you've influenced 2 board members and me as city councilman to be here to listen and to appreciate the good things you're doing. So congratulations to all of you.
And I was just going to tag on to that too, Don, that in addition to letter writing is, getting before the city council, that it's most city councils have public time where you can come in and give a talk, and, sign up the week before and go in and share what's on your mind and on your heart, what programs that you want to get support on, those kinds of things. So that's another way to get involved in politics as a young person or any age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's terrifying at first, but then you start seeing the ripple effect it causes, and it's very rewarding in the end.
Well, and the thing that I've seen is they sit up straight and give the most generous listening I've ever noted. They're, earnestly interested in what you have to share. So it makes it a lot easier, I think, once you see that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you, Students for Sustainability. We really appreciate all of your hard work and all that you have done and all that you will continue to do. And I look forward to seeing you all next Friday. I certainly plan on being there. One of my favorite things to do. Awesome. So now we have the Creighton Climate Movement, which is going to be presented by Caroline. And so Caroline is a current senior at Creighton University majoring in environmental science. On campus, she is heavily involved in the environmental community, serving as vice president of Green Jays, where they seek to initiate and facilitate change and discussion regarding environmental and sustainability issues. Along with this, she is a member of the Creighton Climate Movement, where she mobilizes Creighton students and faculty alike to encourage the university to divest from the fossil fuel industry. So welcome, Caroline.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to get a
It looks like you accidentally muted yourself.
Well, that's not helpful, is it? Let's see if I can start this presentation. All right, share screen. Okay, here we go. All right, are you guys able to see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, perfect. So do we have any Creighton alums here today? You see any hands? Oh, shucks, doesn't look like it. Okay, well, anyways, so I'm sure you guys at least know that Creighton has a decent community presence here, I'd say. There's a total of 4,500 undergraduate students and 9,000 total students. Now, since 2010, the university has publicly committed to focusing on on-campus sustainability. And they began by implementing like energy conservation infrastructure measures. So just working on facilities, and then requiring that all of their new buildings, all new constructions and renovations could be LEED certifiable. So they didn't actually go through like the LEED process, but still like sustainable construction and trying to maintain that sustainability. So in the mid-2010s, Creighton began offering a Bachelor's of Arts and Sciences degree in sustainability, and in 2017 began employing a full-time sustainability director. Further, in the spring of 2018, Creighton hosted a presentation by Dr. Veerabhadran Ramanathan. He's a prominent climate scientist whose talk actually inspired me to change my major to environmental science. And then in 2019, the university hosted a nationwide Catholic climate conference focused on sustainability. So at this point, you're probably thinking like, wow, great, Creighton is doing great things, and it sounds like the climate movement is walking hand in hand with the university higher ups. All their ideals are the same, and man, I wish that was true. But there's one significant area, oh man, okay, where Creighton is not aligned with our vision for a just future, and that is money. Now, I realized I'm lagging a little bit behind on my presentation slides, so you can see up here, it's a little blurry, but so on the far left-hand side, we have the Sustainable Creighton logo, so that's like the new division of the university that they started in the mid-2010s. The Laudato Si conference was the nationwide conference with, I think it was several hundred individuals from all over the country came, so it was a pretty big deal. This is Dr. Ramanathan, and then here is an excerpt that was released regarding like the mission of the Catholic Church and also Catholic universities and just their, basically what is needed, okay. So now we get to the point where there's some disagreement. So in 2020 now, well, okay, so basically an endowment, as a lot of you all know, is a pool that the university has of donations and other capital that's invested with the intention that it will accrue interest and therefore value. So it's basically like a stock-heavy savings account. And as of 2018, the endowment was disclosed to be $568 million. And 60 million of that was directly invested in the fossil fuel industry. So I'm gonna repeat that because that's a super high number. $60 million was directly invested in the fossil fuel industry, and that's 10.6% of the total endowment. So before I get into the thick of our activism and work, I'd like to reframe this a little bit. So last summer, we had the conference, and the main focus was on integrated ecology. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, right? But we all know that as the climate is changing, temperatures rise, it's going to impact the most marginalized members of our global community and exacerbate inequalities that already exist. So it's the people and the nations that have the most to lose who are going to lose the most. So to have a university holding a conference talking about environmental justice and the importance of battling climate change while still having a large amount of their financial interest invested in these companies that are benefiting from the burning of fossil fuels, we found was morally unacceptable. So we kind of felt that there was an extreme two-sidedness there. As individuals who would like to live on the earth into our old age, all of us students, we realized that we needed to take action and hold the university to a higher standard. So in the spring of 2019, we held our first Silence for the Climate event, and we organized a protest attended by over 100 students, including an additional number of faculty and staff members, calling for 3 primary goals. So our first goal was divestment. And so that's moving all the stocks, bonds, and other financial investments tied to the fossil fuel industry and moving them into more sustainable, comparably performing industries or sectors. Secondly, we wanted the university to have a mandatory climate change education component for all students. And then our third was an expedited carbon neutrality date for on-campus facilities. So in 2013, the university released a sustainability statement, and they proposed a carbon neutrality date of 2050. But the UN states that we should reach 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit of warming by 2030 on our current trajectory, which would already result in a significant level of sea level rise, which is catastrophic for millions of people. So a 2050 date is absolutely unacceptable, and we needed to expedite that. So those were the three things that we called for. So that was this image is from 2019. And then last fall, we wanted to continue that work. And so in tandem with our student government, we wrote a referendum for the university constitution, basically inserting a clause that would prohibit direct investment into fossil fuel industry in the future and call for a gradual divestment from the stocks and bonds currently intact. So it passed through all the necessary bodies of the student government, and we made a video to educate students on divestment, what it was, what it looked like, former divestment movements that have been successful in the past. And we had a record high voter turnout, which was awesome, and about 85.6% of those voted in favor of our proposal. It ended up going to the desk of Father Hendrickson, and unfortunately he sent out an email responding that Creighton would not divest at the time. So several months later, last spring, which seems like a billion years ago, this was in February. So at the anniversary of the prior year's climate event, we marched to the boardroom of the 4th floor of the business college, and the board of trustees who have quite a significant sway on where and who controls endowment, who controls the endowment, excuse me. And so they were meeting in Phoenix, so there was no one actually on campus, but we marched as a symbol to the business college, and we asked that they seriously consider divestment at their meeting. This was pretty radical, and a lot of people had different things to say about it, but we read the names of each of the 42 board members and recited an excerpt from the prayer that Pope Francis had released prior, calling for ecological justice. We hoped that they would realize their power in the money and the power of their voices. So just to inspire individual change and individual activism in each of them. So it was a really powerful experience, and we think that it sent the message that we had hoped it would, because over the summer, Father Hendrickson, our president, sent out an email announcing partial divestment of the endowment from fossil fuels, yay, and a continued commitment to sustainability. But unfortunately, if you think that something is wrong, and it is wrong, and you only pull half of it out, well, that's still $30 million. So that's not good enough, and we need to fully divest from the fossil fuel industry. And as students, we were working hard this summer or this semester to find ways to mobilize amidst, new situations, and working for environmental and social justice on our campus. So we have a strong Twitter presence, strong social media presence. I know that's what the other organizations have said is one of their main recruiting strategies and also their main education strategies. So if you're interested in learning more about us, you can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. It's Divest Creighton on both of those. And then if you look up Referendum 1902, that just talks about last year's student legislation stuff. So yeah, I would, I don't know if I have any time, but like the divestment conversation is something that is really important to me. So I would love to have talk about any counterpoints or any questions anyone would have. So
yeah, we certainly have a few minutes. So if anybody would like to ask.
Yeah.
I saw some of the media coverage by the World Herald, and it was impressive. So seeing the pictures you have here are equally so. And certainly we know apartheid in South Africa was partially ended because of divestment. And so I think you're on the right track. What next steps do you have? Some, or well, how are you approaching the board and the administration at Creighton?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, divestment is a strategy that has been used in a lot of different social and other environmental movements, and is proven, or at least thought to be, a very strong, instigator of change. So this semester, we still are looking to expedite further the net zero deadline that the university has in place. And I'd also like to note, one of the main things that people say against divestment is, well, aren't the fossil fuel industries the leaders in climate innovation, right? Aren't they the ones who have the means and the money to put in place like climate neutral infrastructure? And the answer is yes. But right now, the way our governments are working at a federal scale, there is not significant incentive to go that direction. So it's important for smaller scale shareholders and others to incentivize the need to push divestment as a way to say, hey, if you are not going this direction, we don't want anything to have to do with you. So that's what we see. We see full divestment is our goal. And regardless of where November goes, we need to be cognizant of the way that funds and other forms of support talk and what they say. So, yeah.
Great. And it seems to me that Creighton University, because of its Jesuit beliefs, would want to do that.
Correct.
But I'm thinking they also want to make sure that they have a solid financial base. So any options or alternatives that they can come up with. So I would think encouraging them to find good returns in other investments, that they can transfer those funds to something that'll make them as much money, but yet be better for the environment, would be helpful.
Absolutely.
And I wish I had some good suggestions there for you.
Yeah. I mean, we are unfortunately not, alone in Jesuit institutions who are invested in fossil fuels, but we are also accompanied by Jesuit institutions that are completely divested from fossil fuels. And their portfolios, a lot of them have actually seen growth in ways that are comparable to their fossil fuel invested growth rates, I guess. So, it's the argument that, well, our portfolios aren't going to perform as well has been shown. That's not true. It's, all about being smart with your money, but in ways that are ecologically sound. So, yeah.
Awesome. I do have one question.
Yeah.
What or who inspired? Because I know there's that divestment is a huge thing that's going on all around the country and even all around the world across campuses. And so was it that inspired it, or what did?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be a sophomore in 2018. And I don't know if anyone here knows Mike Gillespie. But yeah, of course, lots of nodding heads. He's everyone knows him, but he is really passionate about a lot of things, and he loves to do his own reading, and he was the one who brought divestment to the table at Creighton. He had in the, I guess must have been fall of 2017, spring 2018, he started having conversations on campus and brought it to the attention of Father Hendrickson, who's our president. And so Mike was the one who planted the seed at our university about that. And once he got the message out and people started realizing, there are other universities who are going through the same thing and we can join together. We actually joined a coalition of universities who are looking to divest, and we're a part of that coalition now. So we share resources with them, they share resources with us. So it's just been once you realize that this is something worth doing and something where your voice can have a really big impact, I think it's hard to say, I'm not going to be involved with this. So, yeah.
Love it. I'm here for it. Does anybody else have any questions? Or statements of encouragement? We can keep that going as well.
Go Creighton.
Roll Jays, yes. Alrighty.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see if I can stop sharing this screen.
Wonderful. Seeing none, thank you, Caroline. I really appreciate all of your hard work. And just so everybody else knows, I believe that we're part of the coalition that you're talking about. But the work that Creighton has been doing with divestment has inspired the University of Nebraska students to do the same thing with the NU system, which has $90 million invested in the fossil fuel industry. And then also from my side, like watching all of your work on social media and in the local papers, seeing all this stuff, seeing the pushback brings me so much hope for the sustainable future that we want to live. And I am excited considering collaborating with you all on accomplishing this goal. So next up, we have Stephen Kirchner with our climate. And so Stephen is an assistant wrestling coach for Omaha North High School and coaches youth through the Omaha community. So to Stephen, his role as coach is rooted in supporting and developing people to put them in positions to be happy and successful. And this mindset drives his passion at our climate for supporting young people to be in a position to win climate policy in places no one thought possible, like Nebraska. So Stephen has been organizing with OC as a field rep during the spring of 2018 while a student at the University of Nebraska. Well, he graduated from UNL in May 2019 with a BA in history and joined the OC staff as the National Field Coordinator in October 2019. Stephen, have you really been there for a year? Like, sheesh. Anyway, I know his primary roles on staff are to lead the Nebraska field program and support field reps in areas outside of OC's primary target states. So welcome, Stephen.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Kat. Like Kat said, I've been with our climate on staff since October of last year, but I've been doing climate organizing since about, I'd say like early on in 2017 was when I got my start, started doing a lot of work with Citizens Climate Lobby, got into, carbon pricing and policy, and then just really kind of snowballed into really finding a passion for it and wanting to just uplift people around me. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and get started here. Appreciate everyone being here today. I'm seeing a lot of really cool names and faces and also some new people. So this is also a really cool event because I got to play around. We've been using Canva and we got all of our like brand kit and stuff made into this cool thing. And it's just been a really cool way to create presentations and stuff now. So I'm gonna go ahead and everyone can see this, hear me good? Perfect. Again, I'm Stephen Kirchner. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. And that's also where I'm currently located. And again, I'm OC's National Field Coordinator. So our mission at Our Climate is Our Climate empowers the generations most affected by the climate crisis to advocate for science-based and equitable climate policies to protect a livable world. Today, I'm going to take you through some of the things we've done in Our Climate and really focus in on how we get young people involved in our really core focus areas on how we're trying to make change happen in the climate movement in Nebraska. These are a couple pictures from the climate strike that was mentioned in this last September. Kat with the good old Sarpy County Earth Day shirt on right there front and center, good to see. Yeah, first before we get going, I'd love to get to know everyone a little bit and have everyone just engage in the chat. If everyone could just drop in the chat your names and pronouns and where you're calling from. Like who do you represent or where do you go to school if you're more of a student? And the question I really want to see people really engage with in the chat is thinking about and answering, where does change happen in our community? And I'll give everyone just 10, 15, 20 seconds to run through that. And I'd love to read a couple off while they come in. And also, again, big shout out to Eric Williams and Janice Molhoff from OPPD board being here, and also Don Pricer with the City Council. Loved having some of these elected officials in here, and a lot of great student reps. So again, everyone answer this question. I really want to see kind of coming through is, where does change happen in our community? Thinking about, for me in Our Climate, I'll talk about some of these areas that we've highlighted. I think change can happen everywhere, from the bigger community of, the Nebraska legislator and public power boards and where these big decisions happen, all the way down to the more micro level to just conversations with our friends and family members and showing up in our community. So yeah, so kind of think about that, and I'll keep rolling here. Wanted to give everyone a second to at least kind of engage in the chat. Looking at some pictures over the last, I guess these are over the last year with OC. The top 2 pictures are from 2 lobby days that we hosted in the state unicameral down in Lincoln. I think this one on the right, I'm blanking when this was, I think 2018 or 2019, and this one was 2020, the one on the left. The one on the left, we're sitting with Patty Panzing Brooks, who was the original introducer of LB 283, which is a state climate action plan, and has been working on passing that legislation the last couple years. Picture on the bottom left is from Youth Climate Camp. Last summer, we hosted our in-person summer camp. We were at UNL for 4 days. We stayed in the dorms, ate in the dining halls, and really worked on climate policy. And out of that came the draft for the Coalition of Resilient Nebraskans, which I'll talk a little bit about coming up. We were going to do, we did climate camp again, but we had to do it virtually, so we didn't have the chance to go be in person and do all that cool stuff, but still had a good camp. And the picture in the bottom right, we also do like to get out of town and go travel a little bit to talk about this stuff. This was in Washington, D.C. after Citizens Climate Lobby's policy camp. And right before we went to a 2-day conference and lobby day. So we did like a whole 3-day camp, we did 2-day conference, and then we went and lobbied all 5 members of Nebraska's congressional delegation. So that was really cool. If we would have gone again this year in the summer, it would have been our 3rd year in a row, and we would have been our 3rd year driving to DC and back to make the trip with everyone. So really excited to be participating in that and just kind of spreading the word about climate policy in Nebraska and putting young people in that position to talk about these things and be successful. Looking at some of these areas that we're really committed to and where we're putting our time, at our climate, our interest areas really are driven by our students and our young people who are involved in our programs, and where do they want to put their efforts and put their talents to making change happen. Over the year, we've done a great job of kind of starting to break that siloed mentality where we're all just great young organizers doing good work in different spaces and really trying to pull people together. And in that process, we've been able to start a lot of coalition buildings with CORN and the Coalition of Resilient Nebraskans. Been working on divestment, particularly around the Nebraska NU system. I've definitely know Mike Gillespie and haven't worked too much on like the Creighton one specifically, but I've definitely been supported and likewise has inspired us to really dive into the NU system. I'm also UNL alumni, so that's kind of where our roots are with OC when it comes to our young people. We have a public power action team working on engaging in that area and advocating for things like decarbonization plans, 100% renewable energy commitments, transitions away from the way we get our energy. I'm from the North Omaha community. I'm literally a 10-minute jog away from the front door of the North Omaha coal plant. I grew up there, and so advocating for those things is something that really rooted me in getting engaged with this work. Was once I first learned about climate change in college, connected it. I have a coal plant. I have a highway through the middle of my neighborhood. We're a food desert. You could go on and on about North Omaha, but that's what really rooted me in wanting to do this work. And then taking that to the unicameral action team, you've seen some pictures from us doing our lobby efforts. We think we're in a really good position to work on some policy and get things passed in the next couple of years and do that as quickly as we can in that process. And the last one to highlight on action teams is voter mobilization. We know 2020 is a big election, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure young people are registered to vote and in a position to make sure their voices are heard this year. Other areas we focus on are uplifting the Nebraska climate strike demands that were presented at the Nebraska climate strikes last September. Shout out to Students for Sustainability for uplifting those. We're also working hard to pass a state climate action plan, to transition to regenerative agriculture, to harness our renewable energy potential, say no to the KXL pipeline. And we're doing all of these things, all of these action teams, all of this work, really with the commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, owning that our climate is a historically white-led organization and that we need to uplift Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our space and in the climate movement and do our part to bring voices that are most impacted by this problem to the table. So that's the big overview of what we do at our climate and where we're really engaged and putting young people in a position for. And moving on, looking again, the hot topic right now is that we're really focused on is registering to vote. We were fortunate enough to receive a grant from the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table this year to really bump up our engagement. And so bringing together some of our different voting campaigns are enough with the Alliance for Climate Education and saying that we've had enough of the delays, enough excuses, enough already, and that we're going to vote. We're 51 days from the election. While I'm talking, let me drop this link for you real quick into the chat. This is an example of one of the tools we're using to get people registered and pledge to vote. So I'm going to drop this link in the chat. Feel free to click on that. And what this is it's a pledge to vote tool. And this tool, you'll fill the pledge out. We'd love for everyone to do that. It'll also send you a little reminder about voting. And after you click the submit to pledge, it's going to automatically link you to the Nebraska online portal to do your online registration. You can check your registration if you're not sure, if you've moved or something. Never hurts to re-register. So that's a tool that we're using to get people, one, to pledge, and then two, to actually do their registration. The deadline is October 13th to get registered, and then October 26th to actually do your mail-in ballot, which is something we're really pushing this year. And then the campaign I also want to highlight is our Voteless Not Voiceless, which we're working on with a partner from Massachusetts called Bowseed Ocean Awareness. And it's basically around the idea that young people aged 13 to 17, and I heard someone say they were 17, so I really want to also speak to that audience right now, that just because you're 13 to 17 or you're voteless doesn't mean you're voiceless. And that this campaign is targeted at those young people that are voteless and really sharing their stories, getting written and video testimonials and putting those together, sharing them on social media, sharing them with elected officials, and using them to compel other people to get to the polls this year. So there's kind of our voting and a good preview about that. And super excited to be putting these resources together and having a big impact in this space this year. And really, this is our first year we've doing it. So we're kind of taking 2020 also with that learning curve as well. Now let's look at the ways we use our programming and we actually plug young people into our field team. We have field reps, fellows, and field advisors. Our field reps can join anytime. It's a flexible 1 to 5 hours a week, and as your capacity allows. And we really want to work to plug you in based on your interest, experience, and skills. Like I said, those action teams, those have really kind of came up organically on areas that young people want to put their time into and have wanted to engage. Our fellowship program is kind of our flagship area that we get young people involved with our climate. Applications for our spring fellowship will open up in late September and early October. This is our more committed program that's 7 to 10 hours a week. We have some different ways that we kind of compensate and provide scholarship for this fellowship. So really want to get young people involved with that. And that's kind of our core group that plans a lot of the activities. They lead some of the action teams and really kind of make sure a lot of the core programming happens throughout the year. And then our field advisors are more experienced organizers. They're our program alumni, field reps that have been here for a couple of semesters. They're folks like Kat Warner, who's fantastic. That's a field rep or that's a field advisor. And they provide some of those specific roles like leading an action team. So if like Brittany McGuire, she's like one of our field advisors. She runs our divestment action team. If you know Zach Renshaw, he's another young person in the space. He runs our public power action team, field advisors, and we give them kind of that 3 to 5 hour commitment and really kind of shape our program around these positions. And then of course you can always volunteer. Those other positions are kind of in our core field team and they're more weekly. Volunteers want you to attend events, pay attention to what's happening, get plugged into our communication so you know what's happening in the local climate movement. You can support our voter reg and GOT efforts, our text making efforts this year. Starting as soon as either next week or the week after, we're going to be doing this at least twice a week, potentially even more, to text make and really work on getting young people registered and out to vote. Just showing up whenever you can. You can follow us on social media, like and share the content. I'll drop the handles in the next slide. And you can sign up for the mailing list on our homepage, which is just www.ourclimate.us. And it's just right on the top of the homepage. You can put your contact info in and get our newsletters. And then, of course, this year, vote for climate. And young people, just want to reiterate our climate. Our big goal is here to support you, empower you to pass science-based and equitable climate policies. And there's a lot of ways we do that. So I appreciate everyone let me run on and talk through this. Again, follow us on social media. Here's our handles for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We've also just started a Nebraska Facebook account specifically or an Our Climate Like Nebraskan account and an Our Climate Nebraska Instagram. So still looking to get those followers really going, so could use some shares there. And you can always email me anytime at steven@ourclimate.us. super grateful to be in the space and get to spread some info about our climate today. So I'd love to answer any questions, hear any thoughts, feelings, and yeah, I'd love to just get into it, and I can stop screen sharing too. I learned how to use GIFs, by the way, and they are kind of fun, by the way, just saying. But I'm gonna get out of the screen share and be able to see people's faces.
Stephen, I'll jump in. That was very encouraging, and I really respect the good work that you're doing, helping to bring younger people especially along. The movement back in the 60s was very strong on college campuses and even high schools. So what I'm hearing from all the students and from you today is kind of a revival, a rebirthing of activism and of involvement and taking control of things that we see are not the future that young people especially want. Are you seeing some of that from the students that you coach? I think you're a wrestling coach as well. And so you're influencing their lives in physical ways, but is that translating? Are they seeing the need to be active outside of the physical education too?
Yeah, I appreciate you, Don, for noticing those parallels. We definitely feel like in our generation, and and even some of the folks. I'm 24, and the folks that are in high school and coming up. There's a fiery group of young people coming of age, and it's very encouraging to see them. I think just even myself personally, I think I'm very rooted in my North Omaha community, my Omaha community, my Nebraska community, and I don't want to go anywhere. I want to live here and stay here. But when I look at what's around me, it doesn't reflect what I want to see in the world and just the opportunities I want to exist, the longevity in the future that I want to see. Like I said, I grew up in North Omaha. I live by a coal plant. I have a godson who's 3 years old who literally lives about 1,000 feet. He lives, a couple blocks away. He lives a few thousand feet from that place. And I think about how are we going to cycle through the community again? I've already been here 20 years. We go another 20 around whatever it is with these different infrastructure things. And we just kind of repeat that cycle. So that's what kind of keeps it in. And I definitely think, as I've only been back in the neighborhood for a year since I graduated, but now that I'm getting more closer with my wrestlers and stuff, I'm starting to learn that they are not just, physically talented, but they're intellectual and they're intelligent, and they want to kind of be in these bigger picture things.
Great, thank you.
One question that I do have is, how did you find our climate, or how did our climate find you?
Yeah, so it was definitely, so when I first got involved with just wanting to organize, I learned about climate change totally on accident. I read an extra credit book for class, for a geology class. I was a construction management major at the time. And it just happened to be about, I just literally picked the shortest book on the list because, why not? And it happened to be a book about global warming, glacial melt, sea level rise, and what was going on, and kind of zoomed in on disproportionate impacts, and it just blew me away. Started looking at North Omaha, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to get into this. And then when I started kind of seeing how you get involved, I found Citizens Climate Lobby, went to just a monthly meeting, just kind of showed up, and they're like, hey, we want to fundraise to send students to DC. And hands go up really quick when they're talking about fundraising and sending you places. And so that was cool. Went to DC that summer. OC had a breakout session for students on what was called Put a Price on It, which is how you can organize around carbon pricing on campus. And when I was president of Sustain UNL that year coming back, I was like, how do I provide structure? How do we get students involved? Kind of connected the dots with Put a Price on It. And then that was when, going into that spring semester when I was still president of Sustain, that's when we really I became a field rep and started doing the Put a Price on It stuff on campus. And then from there, it just kind of grew into this.
Wonderful. Does anybody have any other questions for Stephen?
I have one. So, Stephen, you brought up a good point. a lot of conservation, climate science, it tends to be dominated by white people. What are you guys doing to foster that inclusivity with Black, Indigenous, and people of color? It's something everybody's facing, especially in our conservation community.
Yeah, I think the things I want to highlight that we've really done is, I think first we've looked internally about our organizational culture and what structures are we having within us as a, as our climate to be able to engage with young people and engage with us, a diverse group. So we've implemented like our own diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. We just revised all of our policy principles to better uplift BIOPC communities and really kind of be much more live that kind of equitability kind of thing that we talk about, and really explain what does science-based mean and how does that work. And then actually like in the work, just being intentional about trying, when we're thinking about panelists and we're thinking about, what events and what do we want to do, just wanting to bring in those voices, and one, naming tokenism and not just doing it just to be like, oh, well, I had a Black person or I had an Indigenous person on my panel, but really wanting to get their perspective and want to listen and doing that intentionally. And I think being there is important, showing up if they have an event or if they have something going on, not having any ask, just wanting to go there and support, wanting to listen is really important. And then some specific things we're doing is like, we have a group of students in a class at UNL, in an environmental studies class. I have 3 students that are working on this specific project on how do we take this, like we have the state climate action plan. I have 3 students for this semester working specifically to answer the question, how do you bring in Black, Indigenous, people of color to the decision-making table and have their voices actually heard intentionally and transparently on the state climate action plan? And how do we do that? And what does that look like to actually put into practice? And so that's one way where we've taken these internal things, taken these bigger picture things, and now let's actually plug it into our student leaders and figure these questions out.
Thank you.
Appreciate that one. Janice, I'd seen you unmute. Did you have a question as well?
So is our climate working on any strategy towards divestment? Because my perception of how things happen, even in the political arena, no matter how many letters we write to our congressmen or how many, even if a bill has 100% support from the public, really you have to follow the money. And so is our climate working on any action towards either divestment or making sure that we boycott or use other financial means to change the system and change our economy basis? Is our climate working on any of those kinds of things?
I'd say yes and no. I feel like our divestment stuff, like there's obviously always more things you can do. And like some of the stuff I wish we were getting into more is like, okay, we want to divest. What do we do next? I think, some other folks are kind of getting at that and wanting more of that. But the areas we've really focused on, and this is speaking more specifically to the Divest NU program, more of the Nebraska system, is that young people have been having conversations with the administration. And I think a lot of that's been conversations based. We haven't had, I don't think, any direct divestment actions. It's showing up to some board meetings and things, but there was a lot of good momentum going on around February, March, and then pandemic hits and that really got stalled. And at that time, we were really having good conversations with the administration. They were starting to kind of show some hints that they wanted to do this by just, excitement from different, admin folks wanting to have conversations, wanting to pick it back up. NU President Ted Carter not just bashing this and not saying that it's like not even worthy or anything like that. So just like kind of encouraging hints have been kind of coming out. But the pandemic, I would say, definitely put things on a sprawl when it came about how we're going to move around finances in a university right now. So wish I had a little bit more for you there, but it's definitely kind of picking back up. And I'd say the steps right now is folks at UNL are working on a lot of coalition building between a variety of not just environmental groups, but different political and social groups on campus, and then working to branch that out to like UNL, UNK, UNMC.
Any more questions for Stephen? Awesome. Well, thank you, Stephen, for all of your hard work. I appreciate the fact that every single photo you had, like I was in it, like thanks for that plug. And also, something I really wanted to say is working with you for the past 2 years has been incredibly educational, and I have grown so much. Not only have I learned a lot about organizing and talking to representatives and lobbying and event planning, but with your leadership and guidance, I've also learned the importance of how to prevent and also handle burnout, because it's such an important thing to learn. And I never learned it in high school, and Ruth and Dawn both know that. I struggled with that. And so it's something that you've definitely helped teach me. And yeah, so it looks like we have about 5 minutes left. And so I'd like to open this up so if anybody has any remaining questions for the panelists or for me, or even like as an option, if any of the panelists have any questions for any of the people of in the older generations, because this is a group of very passionate individuals of all ages. So feel free to ask.
I hesitate to dig in when you say older individuals, but since I resemble that, I guess, I'm encouraged by all the presenters. And that was really, I think, Ruth's impetus for having a program devoted specifically to young people and the youth involvement in the environment. Each of you have a longer road ahead of you. Ours is mostly behind us, but we are so inspired by handing off the baton to people who have the heart, the commitment, the dedication, the energy, and the compassion to make things happen. And we're certainly here to back you up in any way that we can, to be of models any way that we can, and to encourage you. But know that you're impacting me today, and that I really respect and admire all of you for what you're doing. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all very much.
Yes. Yeah, we really appreciate it. We want to stay involved with all of you. So I hope this is a beginning for us together as we move forward. So we will definitely be keeping you in our loop, and we'd like to be in yours.
I might just take this opportunity to plug our climate strike again. September 25th at 9 a.m. in front of the courthouse. I'll put the details in the chat too, but spread the word.
Heck yeah.
On behalf of Green Bellevue, I would like to thank all of our presenters. I'd like to thank Kat and Ruth for staying in the loop with these people and for bringing it to our attention and publicizing all of these amazing things going on. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. It's a unique experience to be able to see 4 different groups of young people working towards the same common goal, different methods, different specific outcomes, all for the greater good of all of us. So thank you all so much. Our next meeting, October 11th, 1:30, right here on Zoom. It is our general member meeting. We'll do kind of a year in review. It's been quite a year. We've jumped and dodged, and we've done a whole lot of things differently than normal. So it's exciting to see everything that's happened in the green community throughout Bellevue and Omaha. So join us then. If you are interested in being a board member, shoot us an email. or social media. You can message us that way. And then November, our speaker will be talking to us about COVID and climate. So it's going to be interesting. So with that, we're going to officially end the meeting. I'm going to stop recording. If people want to hang out and chat for a little bit, that's cool. I'll keep the meeting open for a little while. But thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.